Hi, welcome to my channel, What I Knit. I'm sure you've seen hundreds of these already, but here is mine. 2024 was a year, and we're heading into a new year. And I think that's all I have to say about that. I'm wearing what I would consider my favorite knit of the year, my handspun traveler, which we will get to closer to the end of this video because I'm going to show you what I made this year in sequential order, starting with the very first finished object. I finished this in January. This is the first and only vest that I made last year. It is the Miz-zoni vest by Lindsay Deegan. I made this inspired by Taylor Swift's Lavender Haze top, but inspired by her Eras Tour poster colors. Most of this I had in stash. It is a combination of ritual dyes, Cloud9 fibers, I think there's some Madeline Tosh, and then knit picks. The like turquoisey color that you see just lightly featured throughout is the only yarn that I bought for this vest, and that one is a Knit Picks Stroll yarn. And as you can see, I modified this vest to be in garter stitch to be closer to Taylor Swift's top. It was a very simple modification to do, and I really like it. I think if I were to make this vest again, I would probably make it in garter stitch again. This was more of a fun knit for me. It was a really fun way to kick off the year using a lot of different colors. I really love this color combo, even though I'm not a very like pastel kind of person. One of the coolest things about this pattern is that the bottom hem has short rows so that it can be perfectly level. And I really like that. I think it looks great. So it's more of a novelty piece for me. I have only worn it once, I think. And I probably wouldn't wear it like this, like a tank. I would probably wear it more like a vest with a long sleeve top underneath. Although now that I see it on again, I kind of think this is a vibe. So maybe I will wear it on its own, maybe this spring, because it's a little too warm for summer. Next is another vibe. This is my Look at My Holes top by James and Watts. I made this for a music festival that I went to at the start of the year, and it is made up half of a fluorescent yarn and half of just this lime green color, and I striped them. I modified the pattern to be in a sport and fingering weight instead of the DK weight that it calls for. Honestly, I thought I was gonna make another one of these this year over the summer. I figured I might make a linen or cotton version, and I never did. So that's kind of still in the backlog for me because I really like this. I think it's so fun to wear. It's not one that I'm going to wear very often. I have to wear it to the right place with the right mood, but when I do wear it, it really makes a statement. I tend to get compliments on it, and if I'm with people who know that I knit, they generally ask me if I made it. I did mess up one of the raglan increases, and instead of ripping the whole thing out, because I didn't have time, I did some sweater surgery on it. I think you can hear about that in my March crafting video. Around the same time, I also made a baby musselburgh hat. It's very cute. I made this as a gift for a friend's baby, and I took too long to give it to them. My bad. So I still have it, and that baby has definitely outgrown this hat. So I'm just kind of waiting for another baby to come along to gift it to. Next is the Paul Klee by Midori Hirose. This one really popped off for a while there, and a lot of people were making it. This really got me back into Colorwork, and I made actually just 2 Colorwork sweaters. I thought I made one more, but it was super fun. The yoke was very fast to make. I used a coast to coast mini sock set as most of the yoke colors, and then I think I added a couple other minis that I had. And then the main color is from Ritual Dyes. It is, I think it's the Maiden line, and the colorway is Loam, and I feel like it's the perfect like dark cool brown. This one is so easy to wear. It's fingering weight, it's very comfy. There is raglan shaping on the second part of the yoke, so it fits very well. I modified the back neck shaping, which I think I have an Instagram post on how I did that and like what I did. I also talked about it in a video. Just a really simple, like low-key mod, but I feel like it really helped it fit better. And I think the biggest thing that I learned with this sweater is that I really like to project plan and buy yarn for a specific project rather than kind of cobbling stuff together from my stash. I do really like these colors, but the one thing I don't like is how low contrast the first and the last two colors are. I knit the colors starting with the lightest, moving into the dark, and then back out from dark to light. So there's a repeat for each set of colors. And I just wish that the lighter colors were slightly higher contrast to really pull off the yoke better. It's fine, I've made peace with it, and I do wear this sweater quite often in the winter. Wow, this is such a fun one. This is what I call my retro granny square cardigan because that is the vibe that I was trying to strike. But I used the pattern Ariana by Amy Christophers. It is a free pattern offered by Barocco. I know a lot of people have made this. It's very popular. There are a lot of granny squares in this cardigan. So if you just need some granny square brain rot, make this. I was sitting on the couch for hours just crocheting away. I definitely recommend weaving in your ends as you go. That's like a huge time saver in the end and definitely made this a lot easier to make. Putting it all together was a little bit of a challenge. I did talk about that in a vlog that I made, and I also filmed a couple of like techniques or just things that I figured out that I thought might be helpful as I was making it. I really want to make another one of these. It's one of those cardigans that when you're in the process of making it, you're like, what the fuck am I making? But especially once you get the knitted cuffs and like the knitted button band on, it all kind of comes together and looks really nice. I mean, I look like an art student. I look like your grandma's crochet blanket that she has on the back of the couch, but that is exactly what I was going for. The biggest thing of note while I was making this is that I used one strand of fingering weight yarn for the granny squares, even though the pattern calls for worsted weight. And then for the knitted parts, I just used 2 strands of the fingering weight. And I feel like that matched gauge fairly well and made this work. I just want to show you the back too, because it's so fun. I had a lot of fun with color this year, and especially with this cardigan. I had been wanting to make a love note by Tin Can Knits for a long time, so I did. I filmed a whole project vlog on it. I made, I think, just one modification, which is that I added bust darts, and I did a little tutorial on how to do that. This was a very quick knit. I used Knitting for Olive merino held with their soft silk mohair. It was my first time trying that yarn, and I definitely understand the hype. It's just a basic yarn. There's not a whole lot to it, but it comes in a ton of colors and it just works for a lot of patterns. I did not knit the high-low hem on this one. It's just a normal hem, but I did knit the 3/4 sleeves. I kind of wish that I knit full-length sleeves. I just don't tend to wear quarter-length sleeves very often, especially when I want to wear like a fuzzy sweater like this. I just get a little cold. So if I were to make it again, maybe I would make that modification. Around the same time, I also made 2 different accessories. I knit these hand-spun socks. This was my very first spin to knit project, so I spun this yarn to make this exact project, and I tried to spin self-striping yarn, and I think it kind of worked out. I actually haven't worn these, but they're fun to look at. This is using the Fleegle pattern, so it is toe up 2x2 with the Fleegle heel. I was aiming for a fingering weight, got closer to like a DK weight. And then I also participated in Andrea Mowry's weekend challenge over Memorial Day, where she comes out with the pattern and everyone tries to knit it in the long weekend. So this year was the traveler hat, and I made mine in this Brooklyn tweed shelter that I had specifically to make a hat. Mine came out pretty large. I did shrink it in the dryer a little bit, and I think I'm gonna try that again because I tried to wear it just like a month ago, and I put it on and I was like, I don't think this is it. So I'm gonna try to shrink it again. It obviously has like a unique shape, and that's kind of the point, but I felt like it was a little too like pointy on the sides. So I think if it were just a little bit smaller, like you can see, this just looks like a giant hat, and it is. If that doesn't work out, maybe I will pass this along to my boyfriend who has a larger head. Moving into the summer, I made my one and only summer garment, which is the Sunshine Tee, very aptly named by Andrea Gaughan. This was my first time knitting a pattern from her, and she did a knit along for it, which was super fun. It is such a great basic tee. I really like it. I used Sandnes Garn 10 Lena in the colorway Sunny Lime. This was my first time working with any Sandnes Garn yarn, and I really liked the way this knit up and the way that it feels. It was not very hard on my hands. It is, I think, a cotton and linen blend with maybe viscose or some other synthetic fiber to help give it a little bit more stretch. So it really does feel nice, and this pattern includes bust darts, which is great. You don't have to knit them if you don't need them, but it's always nice when a pattern includes them in. So I added mine. I think I did the like smaller of the two sizes. Next time I might reduce how many rows I knit in the bust darts. As written in the pattern, I think they're just a little too long for me, but this was a really fun, quick-ish project. These little tops always take a little bit longer than you think they should, but it was honestly a great summer project. I could totally see myself making another one of these next summer, maybe even in the same yarn, just a different color. I also want to acknowledge that I knit 2 bright green tops right before Brat was released, and that was my album of the year. I listened to that so much, especially while I was running. Great album, love Charlie XCX. And this is when I entered my high desert era because I knit 2 green and orange accessories. I made a muscle burra out of my handspun, which turned out great. I actually really like this hat. I think it's cool. I didn't think I was going to like it, but I do. And then I also knit this green and orange pair of socks for my boyfriend. I made these out of 100% wool, and I mentioned that I would report back on how they are wearing because they don't have nylon, they're not superwash. And I think this is only after one wear. There's already a decent amount of pilling. It might be kind of hard to see on camera. I don't think these are gonna fare super well. And then I made a cat blanket out of a lot of leftovers of yarn that I hand dyed many years ago. I just tripled up a fingering weight strand and made a rectangle, and it is covered in catnip. It's got snags all over it. It is definitely well loved, which was kind of a surprise. And now I'm covered in catnip. Next up, my beloved sheep camp sweater. This is such a gorgeous sweater. We can just admire it for a moment. It's a great pattern, and of course made all the better by SpinCycle. My first time using SpinCycle actually, and I went with Dyed in the Wool Ghost Ranch, which is a great colorway. I took a risk and I ordered it online, and I really like the skein that I got. My size used exactly 1 skein, which is great. So if I ever make this again, I don't have to buy 2 skeins and only partially use one of them. I made this for the sheep camp cowl that Mackenzie from Into the Third and Tim hosted over the summer to like fall transition. It was so much fun to knit. I used Cascade BFL for the main color. It's a little bit scratchy, but I felt like the color was perfect to complement the Ghost Ranch. This is in the colorway Nimbus Cloud, and I just really like the way it turned out, and honestly wearing it is not too bad. I don't feel the need to have to wear something beneath it. I've worn this one a lot. I really like to wear it with my like burgundy corduroy pants that I got this year. I think that's a really cute outfit, and it's going strong. It is really holding up well. I did have an incident with the spin cycle bleeding onto the rest of the sweater. It was quite tragic, and I was vlogging during that time, so you can go back and watch me and the state of mind that I was in. I think I've mostly recovered it. If you look closely, you can definitely tell that the color bled, but it's not ruined. There are a couple of like bigger splotches. It's mostly on the back, and I think it's like kind of right in there, and then there's like a few splotches on the sleeve as well. Luckily, not ruined. I still wear it all the time. I'm sure some people can see those big splotches on the back. They're kind of noticeable in person, but whatever. I spent a lot of time on this sweater and I like it. In October, I finally caved into the peer pressure and I signed up for Summer Lee's Colorwork Cuff Club because she came out with these ghost socks and I could not resist. I don't love doing color work on small circumference, so I was very drawn to the idea of just knitting the cuff in color work, and I just loved these little ghosties. They're adorable. I used yarn from Very Deep Stash. This main color was a Woolen Boon yarn, if you remember them from back in the day. This was a MCN, so it has cashmere in it. It's funny because that was the base at the time for quite a few years, and now I'm knitting socks with cashmere and I'm like, wow, I'm so bougie. But that really was like the base that everyone was knitting in. And next, my pride and joy, my baby, my handspun traveler, that I am deeming my favorite knit of the year. It was kind of a no-brainer because I spent so much of the year working on this, and as soon as I finished it, I barely took it off. I've worn this so much and I want to make another one. I think it really is just the hood. As soon as I put the hood on, it was all over for me. I love a good hoodie, and why have I not knit a hoodie yet? It's such a basic hood, but it's just a great shape. It's a good size. I kind of want to put this hood on like other sweaters, so maybe I'll experiment with that. Yeah, here it is. In the end, I used 3 different colorways of fiber to make this, but it is mostly just 2 colorways plied together. I did film a project vlog finishing this, so I talk more about the details in that video. And I also promised that I would make a whole video on analyzing my process making it and all my thoughts as a fairly new spinner, having spun a combo yarn for a sweater for the very first time. So that is coming. I will make that and share more of my thoughts. My last sweater of the year, something you have not seen as a finished object yet, at least not on YouTube. This is the Soana by Denise Otter. It is in Pom Pom magazine. I did not write down what issue it is, but it's on my Ravelry project page. This was sort of my Pom Pom redemption sweater, as I liked to think of it, because I tried to make a Pom Pom sweater years ago and it did not go well at all. And I wanted to see if, now that I'm a more experienced knitter, if it might go better. And it really did. I honestly think that this is such an underrated sweater. There are not many projects on Ravelry. I think there should be way more. If you like this sweater, if you like brioche, you should knit this sweater. It was so much fun. It challenged me technically just enough to really like scratch that itch. There are a lot of different things that you're keeping track of at the same time while you're knitting brioche, while you're knitting cables, while you're knitting in 100% alpaca yarn, if you choose to make it in a similar or the same yarn that it calls for. I used the yarn that it calls for, which I rarely do, but it is Sandinist Garn Borstet Alpaca, which is, you know, there are different yarns like that on the market, but it was pretty accessible to me, so I figured I would just use the same yarn, and it really turned out great. I love this sweater. I did make Just one modification really. I did not knit the high-low hem, so I just kept it the same length front and back, but I did keep the split hem, and I also cropped it by quite a few inches, and that's just because I'm short. So it kind of has the same effect on me as it does on the model. This is so warm. I cannot state to you how warm it is. It's not like immediately suffocating when you put it on, but I have worn this as an outer layer in like 30° Fahrenheit, so just under freezing, and really did not need anything else. But then the problem is that if I wear it inside, if I'm going to like a bar, I get way too hot in it. So last time I wore this, I did have to take it off, but I think it's just a great sweater. I mean, the cables are really visually interesting. The shaping is great. This is a compound raglan in brioche. So I think that the designer did a really good job of just getting this fit to be great. I mean, brioche increases are always challenging because you have to increase by 2 and there's no other way to do an increase. And so I was really impressed with the design, with the pattern writing. I think there was one mistake, and it was something that was fairly straightforward. If I remember correctly, when you split for the sleeves and you pick the sleeve stitches back up, the pattern tells you that you're on a brioche purl row when you should be on a brioche knit row, or vice versa, something like that. And then that kind of has a domino effect, and so you have to fudge it a little bit when you get to that part. But other than that, there were no issues. So I definitely think that this redeemed me on pom-pom patterns, and I do have a lot of their magazines, so that's good. I also wanted to note that I don't find this yarn too itchy. There is like, every now and then I'll just kind of get pricked, especially like on my neck with, you know, this big turtleneck, by like the extra fibers, because it is very fluffy and fuzzy, of course, being alpaca. I don't find it too uncomfortable, but I do notice it while I'm wearing it. So it wouldn't be something that I would want to like wear all day long or like travel in it or anything like that. I mean, it's way too hot for that, but it's just a very cool sweater. I'm very proud of it, and I think that everyone should make it. Go make it. Actually, I take it back. I should not broadly recommend this as a pattern for everyone. You really have to like brioche, you have to like cables, you have to be comfortable with fixing your brioche cables. It's a little bit of a challenge, but it's so much fun. And if you're into that, join me in the brioche cable alpaca sweater. The last project is one that I will let you decide if it counts as a finished object, because I made these socks for my boyfriend for Christmas. I filmed a whole video on how long it takes me to knit a sock, and this is the one that I gave him on Christmas Day, and this is the one that I just need to bind off. I ran out of time right before we were going to leave for a trip, so this is how far I got on December 31st. And I completely forgot that I had not bound off until right before I sat down to film. So if this counts, this is my last FO of 2024, a pair of socks for my boyfriend. I do have one more video coming out as an end of year wrap up where I'm gonna go through all of my stats for the year and compare those to 2023, and then also talk to you about my goals and set some new goals for the year. But I'm not gonna do any of that in this video. So to end, I thought it might be kind of fun to predict some things for 2025. These predictions are just for myself. I am not very good at predicting anything. I'm not good at coming up with ideas for what I think is going to happen. So I'm definitely not going to try to predict anything outside of like my little bubble. And I only came up with 3. So here we go. My predictions for myself for 2025. The first is that I'm going to make more accessories than I made in previous years. I tend to really knit a lot of sweaters and kind of stay in that lane, but I am predicting that this year I'm going to knit way more accessories. Number 2 is that this year I'm going to find my go-to yarn base. I don't feel like I have found that yet, and I want to, so I'm predicting it. And the last one is that I'm going to knit more than 2 patterns from the same designer. I don't think I've ever done that before. If you subtract the muscle burra maybe, I feel like that one doesn't really count. So yeah, I'm predicting that I'm gonna do that this year. And I know that 2 of these predictions are things that I could just go do and then it would come true. But I assure you, I'm definitely going to forget that I made these predictions until the start of next year when I go through them publicly and likely embarrass myself. But that's what I do every day here on the internet. So that's the end. It's gonna be a year, and who knows what's gonna happen.